to the customer. Why? Because my customer was not agreeable to hear to me. The customer was just adamant on what they wanted to hear. But my question is, did you try sufficiently enough? Did you try to position it differently? Did you try to put the same thing across to customers so that he could empathize with thought that you were bringing to the table for him? What difference did you make there? So the differentiator is not what you put on your decks when you put in your sales presentation together, but the difference is all about what you as an individual who has been speaking, who is the direct face at that point in time that the customer connects to. What have you been able to convey? How good were you in your positioning in what you took there? So that's the kind of theme and the thought that I would try to build this thing together. And I definitely would need support from all of you based on whatever you have had experiences beyond what I would bring here. So in a gist, what any one of these words that we talk about, what they do is they lead, if they occur into our systems, whatever we are testing, would eventually lead to a dissatisfaction coming in the form of failure, which could be interpreted again in various words forms, and each one of us would have a taxonomy or terminology for it. So this was setting up the context for what I really wanted to do. Now I think I don't see any sleepy eyes anymore, so let's get started. And I don't think I intend to talk here for about 45 minutes, so probably half an hour or 35 minutes, and then we could look into discussing a little more about the learnings, the problems, and the takeaways. So at the end of it, as managers, what are we usually trying to do? We're looking at capturing defects, capturing metrics, trying to create dashboards. But do you think this helps any of our stakeholders? I don't think so. How many of you think that these three key activities, most of the activities that you would do as a project manager would get pocketed into any one of these three at some stage or the other? But how many of you think that this does create that value add to the stakeholders?
So, if the stakeholders are the ones who are making decisions, this is more of information that they want to make decisions. Otherwise, I don't know if it adds value or not, but if it doesn't enable you to make decisions in absence of this information, forget
So
about value.
what is the decision that you are targeting here?
How do you know that your product is good to go at any stage of life cycle?
So basically you are saying that you want to confirm on a release date, you want to confirm on a go live?
If there is a agile word,
We just say, at the end of the sprint, we have done 10 features, but how many of the features really are ready to be shipped to customer?
But you need to close your story also, right?
Yes. So
You might have umpteen number of sprints for umpteen number of modules that you are covering in that sprint. Where is it rolling up to your story? Doesn't that become important?
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that, if you're only talking about not having this metrics and not having this, it doesn't add any value. Only with respect to that is what I'm talking about, right? So without
Okay. So you are building a context where you are saying that your stakeholders context is when does he close this whole activity of testing, and these parameters will help him decide that.
So I'm not looking at even closing the activity. Testing probably will not end, right, until customer
I'm
uses
not talking about the holistic thing. I'm talking about that one work item that you have against which we are judging as a deliverable.
Yes.
so if the question was, are we shipping clean? These are the ones which can be
Okay. Anything else? Anybody has a different point of view?
I feel that the key stakeholder is the customer.
Okay.
And I think
provided you have been honest enough in portraying these parameters to him. Like I said, this bottle can be presented and represented as any amount of data validation. It's all about your word with the games. So, right. Do you really think so?
So I'll give you an example, right? We have worked with some Korean and Japanese customers who ask us, what is the number of lines of code you're delivering and what is the number of defects you're delivering? They're looking at some ratio. I don't know what the boundary, but they usually ask this question.
Usually when they ask these questions, they have these kind of, some kind of formulas which run out the code coverage for them. That's the next thing. So that's the another parameter. But usually what they look out for is the code coverage.
This could matter even to the end stakeholders.
So till now I have got only two stakeholders in last 5 minutes that we've been talking about the slide. So one is end customer and one is you mentioned something. The vendor, the supplier. So do you think? Right.
That's my caveat.
So this is the list of stakeholders that any point in time you would have, and each one of them become key, very, very key elements in whatever you're trying to do. So you cannot go back and delete your managers from that list, be it sales, marketing, project, program, be it your leads who run the show, be it your testers who are at the ground level and who are actually doing the job, be it your developers who are the key elements, who close out the defects that you raise, the issues and concerns that you portray out. The third parties, you would have tons of them associated with any large programs. You would have people who will manage your databases, you'll have people who will manage your servers. With virtual technologies going big time, you will have so many of them around, managing your data stage servers, managing your cloud environments, so on and so forth. The list is endless, and I am sure each one of us can add many and many to it. Then your company, whether it's a product company or the service company, the bottom line being shipment, as you rightly said. Your shipment also becomes a huge stake, because without that, what have we done? What are we trying to do? The outsourcing agency, so whosoever is the one, whether it's an individual, an agent, an agency, CIO of a company, which these days is the word on the go, and ultimately, ma'am pointed out here, your end user. Without the end user, nothing exists. So that is where we stand at, and end user is something that you would keep hearing a lot from me throughout this presentation. So, little more food for thought. Have you ever asked these questions to yourself? I'll just give you a quick minute to read through, and then I'll come back. So how many times, as soon as you get doing an activity, something hits your table as a manager, do you try to clarify, do you try to identify, do you have completeness of information about it? How many times do you start thinking, do you need to strategize? Long time back, I had a boss who had a big printout on his desk. If I have to do a task in 8 days, I use 7 to sharpen my axe. So the first time that I read it, I was like, what has he written? And I used to be a fresher at that point in time. It took me a while to understand what he actually meant. And today what I realize, what he actually meant was that we start working on a reactive mode rather than being responsible and be on a responding mode, which actually gives us better results. We start running around in circles. We think that we have solved one problem, but we do not know that we have created probably another one, and it becomes something like a circular issue. You keep coming back, you keep getting fixed into one after another. It becomes a kind of chain unending. So this is another point that I'll touch back further, which has been a pain point with something called inherent defects or defects across cycles that we see, which are repeated defects. Do you rebuild your testing methodologies as you move from one project to another, or as you move from one customer to another? How many times we do that? We think, no, it's easier. I was working on XYZ customer earlier. I was on Java technologies. I had a web-based application that I was leading. Can I get my next project somewhere nearby? Can I do the same thing? When we as little more senior managers go back and try to staff new projects, that's the first resistance that we face, starting up from the lead level onwards. Why are you not looking at reskilling? Why are you not looking at learning something new? In today's date, Java may be the in thing and maximum used across web technologies, but tomorrow there could be something else. Yesterday it used to be basic HTML. Today we've moved on somewhere else. So this is a continual improvement, which is the word somebody mentioned out. And this is something which we, as an individual, if we don't sustain, if we don't inbuild into the people who are coming out and we are leading them, I really feel that we would get into bigger troubles tomorrow. Do you work out on your teams getting specialized testing? There's another potential problem that I've seen across with managers and also individuals not wanting to reskill themselves. They love to be in the him how to use a cell phone, a smartphone, iPad, any of the modern technology things. But I should get something home, or he should find a friend of mine walk in with a new gadget, which nobody needs to tell him what has to be done or what he needs to do. It was my mother got a new Samsung Galaxy, and she was not able to, she is from a very extremely old era, so a touchpad is a concept that she's not comfortable with because it moves so fast. So she was like, I find it so difficult to swipe it open and go to the virtual keypad and type all that. He tells, Granny, you don't know. This is how it is done. Then later, when I went home in the evening, my mom was like, have you taught him all this? You know, today he told me how to use my tablet. Do you allow him to touch your tablet? I was like, no. He's allowed to play only games on my tablet, that too when I travel along with him. Otherwise, I do not give him my tablet. She was like, okay, he's taught me all these things. So one comfort that it gave me was that I could disconnect from having the patience to teach my mother how to use her tablet. The second thing was that now both the grandchild and the grandmother have an occupation the whole day. She will look forward for him to come back from school and teach her new things. So that's again a learning which I took back, that I also need to upgrade somewhere to be able to handle the situation. The next point, are your notes and narratives sufficient enough to convey answers? At the end of everything, somebody mentioned quality and processes. The quality and processes mandate us to create a lot of documentation, be it virtual documentation, be it hard documentation. Even for our estimations, proposals, sales, the marketing, we do not survive without documentation. So when we go with those, are we trying to look at creating volume into documentation, or are we trying to put across a point? When I come here with a deck, do you want me to put everything together and explain everything from scratch? Or are you looking for that one key takeaway that will make a difference to you as you walk out of this room? How many of us put that thought together when we start documenting and pushing back to the customer? And that was one of the questions why I put the initial slide together when I asked, does it matter to the stakeholder? So when you have a metrics, when you have a dashboard, when you have any kind of defect management, stages, cycles, everything going out, do you consciously realize how much of that the customer actually needs, or are you throwing it at his face because you want to showcase that you added value to him by showing those numbers? Or did you think that it actually mattered to him in making that decision that when should he time box it, or when should he go live with it, or when should he end his story if he is on the agile mode? So did you pick up those relevant points that did make a difference to him? I am not saying that you should not have these parameters. As you rightly say, you cannot be judgmental if you do not have any benchmarks or any parameters to measure against. But when you have these parameters, are you just trying to throw these numbers, or do they make a relevant sense to your stakeholders? The last point. How many of us go back and do a team brainstorming? The very few who are people managers. The very few of us whom you would find that we would actually like to develop a team, or mentor a team. There are a lot of people who just go back and try to look at it. I have this sprint or a batch or upgrade that has come in. I need to test it within this time. This is the date that it needs to go live on. Testing has to be completed. And what do we do at the end of it? We get scripted. There's somebody else driving us. There's some other parameter which is driving us. We don't even think about, is it feasible if there's a wrong estimation which has gone back? How many of us have gone back and tried to push back to our customer saying, boss, you're trying to push me, but this will not happen. We'll do it for you. We can always do it for you. But this is the additional cost that will come to the table. This is the additional effort that will come to the table. And this is why we are doing it, because your quality will not be compromised if we put this on the table. Do you go back and talk? No. Most of the time, what do we try to do? It's like customer is the boss. If the customer said it, it has to come on this date. Just meet it. The same mentality that we do in most of our other work also. If the boss has said it, I just need to do it. How many of times do we go back and question? It's also similar kind of thought process that our team members have when we go back and push them against the estimates that we have done or somebody else has done and we are supposed to deliver as leaders. So what goes out from our table is a yes or no, or the completeness of the activity that we have got into. But the team would have a lot to bring out with their experience at the ground level. So do we try to roll their experience back into the strategies of delivery that we are building? Is the question that I ask when I say, do you brainstorm with your teams?